Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look now and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Whoa, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rest. Well, right now it's time for hemp.
Thank you for taking Time for Hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to Time for Hemp all around the world on Tumblr, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio. You can find us in Google Plus stores for your apps if you want to download them into your smartphones and share us with your friends. It is Thursday, and on Thursdays, we put a spotlight on some of the amazing activists working here in the United States, and I do so with my joint host, Paul Stanford. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Casper. How are you today?
Fine. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, just busy starting hip businesses, helping medical marijuana patients, and trying to make it happen.
Well, that's a groovy thing, Paul. We really appreciate that. And we've got one of your joint friends on the program today, someone who's working diligently in the field of law to help end a prohibition. Reich. Did I get your last name pronounced correctly? Reich?
It's Reich.
Reich. And you've been working a long time. You were activated, it sounded like, by Jack Hare a long time ago. Is that correct?
I started a film in 2007 and 2009 after writing a story for the Amsterdam News at the time. I was in researching Jack Hare and his friends for my Hemp for Victory movie that was supposed to come out in 2012 with the election and Prop 19, and everything went crazy. And I was a caregiver working with my friend Jason Andrews, who was supposed to be California's first hemp farmer. And recently, my movie's taken almost 7 years to come around because we've hit a few stumps in the road. I think the hardest thing we're facing right now is trying to tell this story in 2 hours.
Well, absolutely. It's a large topic, and it's not easy to pour it all into 120 minutes.
No, the movie's probably going to be divided, hopefully, into 3 actual movies because we've covered such large issues between legislation and voting, problems to marijuana caregivers, and more recently, this doctor's fraud that we're going to discuss. And hopefully today we're going to do a great job educating your audience.
And if you could talk just a little more directly into the microphone so you can be just a little louder, we'd appreciate it. Now, what got you involved in the marijuana movement, per se?
As a beginning investigator, researcher, people were opening up dispensaries in Los Angeles, and they were asking me to become a caregiver or partner in their businesses. As a documentary filmmaker, I wanted to learn more about the people who started this movement, and so I directed my focus to people leading the movement at the time. And through that time, I've connected with some of the, higher people in the movement who have, the right direction and purpose to, educate and evolve our industry and hopefully move it out of the dark ages.
And then you started doing this movie because of Jack Hare, because of your meeting Jack Hare. So you've been pretty active in the marijuana movement then for quite some time.
Yes, I started with Jack Hare and his group of friends from CCHI. And CCHI this year is going to be working towards CCHI 2016. So ultimately, in my movie, we want to tell voters to be ready for California in 2016 because it didn't happen in 2012 or 2014. And this has become terribly challenging for medical marijuana patients in California, whereas in other states, Colorado and Washington, are experiencing full recreational marijuana as opposed to medical marijuana. And I have some topic discussion to lead us towards why medical marijuana needs to continue existing while people are still looking at marijuana legalization.
Well, and I also know that you're a musician as well, and don't you dedicate some of your musical talents towards prohibitional work?
Actually, my music is totally away from the prohibition style of music making, because the music that I compose for my film, or the music that I compose for being a, quote, rock star or performance artist, is obviously changed since 2008. This movie has taken a huge burden on me and a huge creative toll. But ultimately, I didn't want to be pocketed as one of those marijuana artists that's very limited in scope. A real one does it very well, and Snoop Dogg is too big of an artist to be an activist. So I'm kind of between the fringes.
Well, and your work as an activist has been rather interesting. I know you've been doing a lot of things in the past, but you're currently working with McLeap. What the heck is McLeap?
Yes, McLeap. Let me tell you a little bit about McLeap. My partner, Jason Andrews, I'm not sure. I think you've had him on the show before because we came on together a long time ago. In 2009, Jason Andrews was a state ID card caregiver. That means he went through efforts to follow the state ID program past his doctor, getting a doctor's letter, and then getting a state ID card for Orange County. He was caring for AIDS patients and other patients. Then law enforcement of Orange County pulled him over one day for having a black bag. That black bag that contained medicine and money has been in the courts for almost 5 years, costing my president his career and his job and his livelihood. So I dedicated a portion of our company and organization to law enforcement education. And because he has a state ID card that's not recognized in the court, we have to sue the courts of Orange County because the state ID card didn't protect him as a patient, and his doctor wanted $3,000 to go to court for him. So when the courts didn't recognize our doctor's letter, our state ID cards, and our corporate seller's permit for our corporation, Pro 215, we spent over $40,000 to hang a jury where I wasn't allowed to be a witness in court for my partner as a member of this corporation. So after a hung jury, we waited 3.5 years, and he just took a deal in Orange County after his public defender, Ernest Eady, was untrustworthy. And we finally gave up trying to use the public defender because we couldn't trust the public defender to give us a fair trial and get us through the courts safely. So we've had to begin a program to educate not only law enforcement, but we have to educate judges, juries, district attorneys, everybody in the courts at every phase of law, because our documents are not being acknowledged. Our statuses as caregivers are not being acknowledged in the courts. And in a similar contrast, I, as a patient and a victim of crime, have not been acknowledged by the courts when trying to prevent doctors from being frauded by illegal clinic owners, which will work our way into that story. But if California couldn't possibly make its state ID program safe for patients, we definitely have some very distinct concerns about other issues that are affecting patients in the medical marijuana industry.
Paul, have you any questions at this point before I go on?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you want to explain to our audience how patients are left in the lurch when these clinics steal doctors' IDs?
Sure. Let me talk a little bit about doctor identity theft. This is a new area of law enforcement for most the medical board and police jurisdiction. And so I'm actually trying to establish jurisdiction to the medical board at the state level to be able to deal with unlicensed clinics. In the state of California, it's very simple. you just go and see a doctor in person. If you see a doctor in person the first time, you can use Skype or telemedicine the following year when getting your renewal. However, it has come to our attention that there are clinics being sold illegal to non-doctors and non-physician assistant operators who are examining patients, touching them, taking their blood pressure, and these aren't nurses or physician's assistants. They're mainly glorified secretaries running these clinics for doctors who are being scammed. The doctors don't even know that their visits that aren't being seen with patients are being taken, so the money that a doctor would earn is being skimmed off by illegal operators. Most doctors make $15 to $30 doing a Skype visit, and according to most of our evidence with the illegally sold clinics, doctors aren't even seeing patients, or doctors using Skype are below the standard of practice and maybe on the Skype television for 1 or 2 minutes. And in the most extremes, the people on the Skype television or telemedicine video screen are not even doctors, that people are being imposters pretending to be doctors, and patients are getting first-time evaluations that are fraudulent letters. And up till the other day, I took our 151st case of one of these doctor's visits, and we estimate there are over 30,000 to 100,000 cases in the state of California today.
Are you familiar with the Green Life system? I work with them in California.
Yes. We just spoke to the owner of Green Life, and when I told him 2.5 years ago that people were using Green Life system to steal identities, the owner, Alan at Green Life, told me he was going to threaten me and sue me. Now that I've shown him the evidence that the doctor's ID is stolen, we're pursuing Green Life and asking Green Life to tell us how many times the identity of Dr. Woolery is stolen, because like Green Life, a verification company that does not protect patients is harming patients and serving patients in a capacity that is unsafe. And because the companies that are operating verification services tend to be abusive towards me because I'm concerned about Skype visits, they told me that they don't really want to do anything about Skype doctors until the medical board or an investigational agency is investigating them. To which I understand Green Life is under investigation since they were the doctor's verification service for Dr. Woolery. But those companies, including medical marijuana doctors, I've also contacted for issuing fraudulent letters. And because they're third-party companies, they tend to threaten and harass me for trying to fight for patients' rights and safety. This is also the same experience I had with Weed Maps. Our collective is not allowed to advertise on weedmaps.com because I complain about doctors. So if I were to call Weed Maps right now, you'd get a busy signal from 2 of my phones unless I call from a third phone that's not blocked by Weed Maps. So we definitely have a problem in our industry that the advertisers who are selling the services to fraudulent doctors' clinics to advertise and send us illegal patients are part of my core problem. This includes Pot Locator that is now partnered with marijuanadoctors.com, who has been very unprofessional, as well as Weed Maps, in looking towards the needs and safety of our patients and caregivers' concerns. Because most caregivers don't recognize Skype doctors as letters as being illegal because they haven't researched the clinics are being illegally owned and sold in our area. So if you happen to be a caregiver in the San Francisco Bay Area, you might want to visit mcleap.org or call us at 925-354-9411 if you think you're a caregiver receiving fraudulent recommendations from a Skype doctor, or even if you are a patient who thinks you may have a fraudulent letter. We're actually here to help advocate you and support you as an anonymous victim of crime. Because we've seen the way the medical board is dealing with these cases, I've taken it personally as my role to be the anonymous caregiver to stand up for over 151 patients who are too afraid to stand up to fraudulent doctors and clinics.
Do you want to name names anymore, like the doctors and clinics that are doing this?
Let's go ahead. Let me walk off camera here and get a list of doctors who you probably shouldn't talk to. First of all, anyone who goes to the 420 physicians of clinics of Antioch, Dublin, or Tracy should probably give our care line a call, because you probably received a Skype letter, or if you obviously are smart enough to recognize that you did not see your doctor in person, this would be an important reason to file a claim with our anonymous claims group. Here's a name of some doctors who've issued letters. Dr. Jonathan Woolery's identity was stolen. So if you received a doctor's letter from a Jonathan Woolery, his identity was stolen from the year 2012 to 2011 to 2013. His identity was stolen. The president of that company to which his identity was stolen was Dr. Daniel C. Sousat. And if you got a letter from Daniel Sousat and didn't see him in person the first time, then you were frauded by Daniel C. Sousat. If you received a letter from Edgar Suter over the internet and did not see him in person, then you also have received a fraudulent Skype letter. If you received a letter from a Dr. James Cow, who is an ophthalmology doctor, or a DO, doctor of ophthalmology, Dr. James Cow issued letters for the 420 physicians, the CanCare physicians, and now the physicians' clinic is called Keep It Simple Healthcare, KISH. So these clinics change names and owners. A Dr. Christian Santizo, operating out of Florida, he issued these doctors' letters over Skype. We just received our 151st case from a Howard Ragling Jr. Out of 151 cases, we had one case where a patient in Southern California actually saw him in person. So that out of one case, that person was never seeing patients in person, only over Skype. We have a Dr. Phelan. I don't have his first and last name, but Dr. Phelan, you may want to check your recommendation for Dr. Phelan, Phelan. He was also doing Skype visits. And in Modesto, California, we have a Dr. Bradley Idleshaw, Director of Ophthalmology. And then we also have the MC2 clinic up in Eureka. If you happen to be traveling through Eureka and getting a letter, stay clear of the MC2 clinic. There are no on-site doctors there to serve you. If you're interested in the court case against Darlene Weaver, you can email us at info@mcleep.org for a copy of the court case if you think you're a victim of the crime. Her court docket number for Contra Costa County is 01-168-740-9, and Darlene and Ivan Weaver are responsible for the initial businesses that started with Dr. Daniel Sousat as the president while they were stealing the identity of Dr. Sousat. Darlene Weaver went into federal prison for some other crimes that we can't identify, and she owes $700,000 restitution for federal crimes related to other businesses she had before she started scamming marijuana patients and doctors. So her and Ivan Weaver are looking at charges of identity theft and practicing medicine without a license. And the state is starting to take those cases, but they are denying caregivers, and the way they're dealing with victims and witnesses, I've made a personal stand and am actually drafting a letter to the executive director of the medical board. Casper?
Oh, I thought maybe you might be doing some more follow-up, so I didn't bother to jump in there. Sorry about that. So what can patients do to help you and get involved there in California?
The first thing California patients can do here is see a doctor in person, and then they never have to contact us. But for any patient who's seen a doctor over Skype the first time, we're urging them to call our hotline at 925-354-9411 or email a copy of their recommendation for research review or case review to info@mcleep.org. That's mcleep.org. And we chose the name McLeep for the Medical Cannabis Law Enforcement Education Program, and dropped the McDirt program for doctors. And so we're now just the McLeep Claims Group. And we are actually trying to challenge all the medical marijuana attorneys to stand up and come help us, because we've called over 100 attorneys for help in all of our cases, from Jason Andrews to the doctors, and no attorneys want to stand up, from the marijuana attorneys to your regular practice attorneys. So we're actually presenting $1 million challenge for the attorney who does come forward to assist us, because I was abused by an attorney, John Fury. He said some very racist things to me and abused me, but he started a $20 million claim for our company and then stopped helping my partner, Jason Andrews. So we need a smart attorney in civil law to help us pick up this $20 to $40 million claim in Orange County. And we're asking any of the medical marijuana attorneys to stand up and give us a call, to stand up, give us a hand. It's hard calling attorneys every day, and it's very time-consuming. It definitely takes away from my music and filmmaking career. And volunteer members of our patients have stolen from our organization, taking discounts for shake and medicine, and not calling attorneys and volunteering as they follow through. So we definitely have a lot of trust issues trying to find responsible, skilled, and talented people to help us fight these very difficult civil rights issues.
All righty. Well, with that said, I think it might be a good time for us to take a commercial break and then pay our bills. And then after that, we're going to listen to a song about how fantastic marijuana is, and then come back and pick up where we left off here at Time for Hemp. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier physicians clinic in the United States. THCF has offices all across the United States, from Hawaii to Michigan. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 patients obtain their medical marijuana permits to legally possess, grow, and use medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, multiple sclerosis, or any other neurological degenerative disease, or if you have any gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, or if you have AIDS, cancer, spastic disorders, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or visit us online at hemp.org. Again, the number is 1-800-723-0188 and the site is hemp.org.
Absolutely clear, the ganja herb is the healing of the nation. So don't have no fear, and always be here. Again, be here for enough generation. laboratory resource. So many illness, they call it herb cure. So why don't you give I and I the permit? Oh, yeah. So I and I can go on and run. Rain come falling, make the ganja grow, and the sun come shining, the breeze the pollen blow. You pick him up, you lick him down, you up it like to run him down. The ganja man come right back. Using your sense, laughter resource. So many illness, they call it herb cure. Another leaf, I said I take a reading to another riff, yeah. They want us to feel tipsy-turvy. Puppy dogs, come pissing on your face. They don't want you to burn the sweet lemon collie. Oh my Lord, keep the smile upon the children's face. Oh, you pick him up, you lick him down, you up and try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back. And this a musty holy boy, you pick him up, you run him down. The ganja man coming right back. And when the rain come falling, make ganja grow. Yeah. And when the sun comes shining, the breeze, the pollen down. You pick him up, you lick him down, you up and try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back. This a musty calling, whoa, 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 yeah. Ganja man coming right back. You pick him up, you lick him down, you up and try to run him down. The ganja man coming right back.
Yeah, we are right back, and you are listening to Time for Hemp on timeforhemp.com, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and, of course, iHeartRadio. And like a good joint, Time for Hemp is best when shared with friends. It is Thursday, and we are having a discussion with some of the hardworking activists here in the United States about what's going on our borders here and what's going on with our politicians and our laws. And my joint host, Paul Stanford, and I are having an interesting joint chat. You still there, Paul?
I am here.
Well, before we get back to Lee's discussion, it looks like the voters voted last election about the marijuana laws in the state of Oregon, but it looks like your lawmakers are trying to ignore the voters and write their own little piece of paper. Is that true?
Yep, they definitely are. You know, they implemented this, what they call very much tongue-in-cheek, as they like to point out, the Joint Committee on Implementing Measure 91, the first 4 months they were in session, they didn't talk about Measure 91 at all. It was all about restricting medical marijuana. Fortunately, we've stopped those bills. And so if they don't do anything at all, we'll be very, very happy. Just last night, they thought they had come up with a compromise, and one legislator who wants to ban medical marijuana dispensaries without a vote of the people, which is what was required in Measure 91, he pulled his support because he can't force the rest of the legislature to go along with it. I'll tell you, nothing would make me happier than for them to do nothing at all. And so I'm hoping that's what will happen. There are three things that we are lobbying for, and we urge people in Oregon to contact their state legislators in Salem. I'm just about to drive down to Salem on other business, but we want a progressive license fees for these new medical marijuana retail, adult social use marijuana retail stores, so that somebody who's making $100,000 a year doesn't pay the same license fee as somebody who's making $10 million a year. So number one is the progressive license fee. Our number two request is that people can keep everything that their marijuana plants produce. Right now, people are allowed to grow 4 marijuana plants each household, and there's an 8-ounce limit on the amount of marijuana they can have. Well, I haven't grown an outdoor plant that only produced 8 ounces ever. All of my outdoor plants produce a lot more. So people should, like in Colorado, be able to keep everything their 4 plants allows them to have without some artificial limit. I mean, how could you tell the plant, hey, stop, you made 8 ounces, stop. When they sell it, it's grow 1 gram more. These plants don't understand that. And then, last but not least, we want the legislature to abide by Measure 91 requirement of a vote if they're going to ban adult social use stores or medical stores. We don't want the city councils to ban them. It's happened in 140 different cities and counties across Oregon in the past year. Measure 91 requires a vote of the people, and we think the legislature should abide by that. So those are our 3 requirements. 3 lobbying points is, we have a progressive license fee, progressive fees based on the business's size, allowed to keep everything your 4 plants produce, and last but not least, a vote of the people if they want to ban marijuana businesses in their municipality or county. So with that said, let's get back to Lee.
All right, and Lee, we know what's going on. What is the 242 deprivation of rights article?
I started going federal on you guys in my notes, didn't I? Boy, this is a tough one. Most marijuana patients don't know this, but here at McLeap, the law enforcement education program is stepping on new ground. Marijuana patients get robbed for pounds. They're caregivers. Some are very sick and in need, and the medicine they're providing to other clinics or dispensaries to a broker or a person in the middle is stolen. That person loses everything. And I've been the victim of several thefts and rippers, and one of the things that became a target when me and Jason started McLeap back in 2009 in Los Angeles, when a caregiver took all our medicine for our little collective. And, you got a quarter pound of this and that, making up all your medicine to help patients. And your livelihood is financially tied up in a few jars. And some punk kid steals everything from you. And you go to the police department and you say, well, I need to make this report, and they turn you away. This happened to me in about 2008 or 2009 in Hollywood and Vine. And I was trying to treat it like business property because my partner had just spent $50,000 to buy Hemp Factory Corporation, which was actually a fraudulently sold corporation that he bought from an attorney, thinking he bought a pre-ICO license. He bought a turd for $50,000. So there's been a lot of rip-offs, and I've been trying to be able to report them to the proper agencies. And when I found out there were no proper agencies, I realized California patients needed a law enforcement education program like ours to help educate and direct law enforcement to disabled persons' needs. Not just that they use marijuana, but these people are disabled or sick and need to be treated with a certain sense of compassion that obviously hasn't come through the Compassionate Use Act that people like Dennis Perrone and other people like Chris Conrad have really worked to make things happen in California. I was challenged by Normal and ASA not wanting to listen to my concerns for patients, so me and Jason being stuck in the courts forced me into a real tight area of having to stand up for patient issues in a serious way. And so I composed in 2013 the McLeap report, and hopefully we can make that file available for download or by request my first research report, and the court cases now that are coming up in the courts with the identity theft of doctors, selling phentermine with stolen doctors' identities. None of this was ever supposed to be around medical marijuana, but what is happening, the unscrupulous people are getting away with crime against patients, and most patients who are patients using marijuana as medicine or just involved in the higher business of it are too scared to go to the police or file reports, or even scared of the stigma of using marijuana that they'd lose their job, so they don't complain about a letter or getting ripped off for a pound because they're too scared. So we have to change that. We have to find out, one, through our study, we're asking people who are victimized to actually report to us anonymously. Let us take your claims so we can have a study of patients who have gone to law enforcement agencies and been turned away for one reason or another because they were a medical marijuana patient. That's what discrimination is. Deprivation of rights under Article 242 of the U.S. Constitution is called deprivation of rights. And this is also tied to Article 5 of the Constitution, which involves the obstruction of justice. So, for example, I was a caregiver to a medical collective. They took 1.5 pounds from me and shut their doors and stole 42 pounds on 4/20 around Easter and ran away on majorly sick patients. So I tried to explain to law enforcement that they took 42 pounds and ran on all the patients, like as if a car lot had taken 42 cars and closed their lot and all their consigned cars were gone. And you came back one day and said, "Where's my car?" All these people came back for their medicinal consignments and said, "Where's my medicine?" Law enforcement in Vallejo, California, refused to take reports altogether. So there are law enforcement departments in bankrupt cities with regulations for marijuana, but when 7 to 8 people come together to file a report, they're not looking at the owners of the dispensary to be possibly unsafe or criminal. And when finding out one of the owners of these dispensaries was known for strong-arm robbery, we found out that the owners of the clinics were using patient records to rob their farmers, which means once you give your driver's license to a collective or dispensary thinking they're acting in good business, they were taking patient records and doing hits on gardens and farmers. People with strong-arm robbery skills would go and attack farmers' homes at gunpoint, possibly, and take their medicine. So we're trusting people in collectives who may not be safe. And I had to find out the hard way by going to a dispensary in Vallejo and getting ripped off for 1.5 pounds and having to owe a farmer for £1 because I couldn't file a police report, which leads us to the fact that if you have criminals owning businesses and ripping off patients, it's hard to bring into the civil court if they're acting in a criminal capacity because law enforcement won't take reports. So we're asking all our patients and caregivers and people out there in Time for Hemp Radio land to come forward anonymously and tell us if they've been ignored by law enforcement or why they were too scared to go to law enforcement to begin with. And we're trying to make sure we make it safer for patients who are exploited or harmed to come forward because public safety needs to be part of this medical marijuana industry.
All right. Well, excellent. Okay.
It's quite a speech. Next question.
All right. And what is Article 5, obstruction of justice?
Okay, that, once again, I kind of glossed it. I'm sorry. Obstruction of justice, basically, when dealing with deprivation of rights, for example, I'm not being given the credential. I studied to become an expert witness on these doctors' cases, and the courts in my county won't let me be a witness or a victim. That's a deprivation of rights complaint, and it also leads to Article 5 of obstruction of justice. I can't report a crime. That crime can't be investigated because law enforcement isn't doing anything because they're problem with state laws is confused with federal laws. I think we've come to the point where the federal government is starting to step back on things, and the state needs to catch up. 18 years of California's flawed systems led to 7 years of me researching basically a lot of crime and fraud instead of a lot of caregiving and positive support and professional business. I'm finding a lot of unethical and unsafe people, and if I'm finding them, I can only imagine the average person out there is really getting scammed and ripped off. And we want to try to build a medical marijuana industry with positive ethics, positive values, and a direction that leads to patient safety and not harm of medical marijuana patients, because we choose to medicate differently. For example, I was thrown into mental health by my law enforcement, and the doctors in mental health didn't want to help me because I'm a marijuana patient. They only wanted to prescribe me pills. They never took any of my statements or care towards, I don't use those pills, I use medical marijuana. I spent 2 months with a psychiatrist who only wanted to prescribe me pills and then wouldn't fill out state forms for the California Victims of Crime program. So I'm finding that professional doctors in the county couldn't even do their jobs, and so it's almost like the county doctors are doing just as good a job as our unlicensed or Skype doctors. And that brings a lot of concern to me that professional medical doctors aren't paying attention to patients' needs as medical marijuana patients. So we really need to beef up legislation to doctors and educate our general public on how to deal with patients' needs and concerns.
All right, well, with that said, I'm going to take a commercial break here and pay our bills, and then we're going to come back and pick up where we left off here on the big broadcast and remind people that we are like a good joint. We are always best when shared with friends. You are listening to the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Please share us with your friends.
Serious Seeds is your source for quality cannabis and sativa seeds. Serious Seeds are the creators of legendary strains like AK-47, Bubblegum, Chronic, Cali Mist, and White Russian. The AK-47 is probably the most awarded strain on the planet. The high THC content of AK-47 makes it the perfect medical strain for patients seeking quick pain relief. Cali Mist is an almost pure sativa. Female medical cannabis patients have reported that this strain helps relieve menstrual cramps. Serious Seeds just acquired another Dutch high-quality seed bank, Magus Genetics. From now on, Serious Seeds can offer you even more award-winning strains. The fine folks at Serious Seeds strive to breed the best cannabis genetics that they can find, so patients can rely on the effectiveness of their medicine. Go to SeriousSeeds.com to grow your medicine. That site again is SeriousSeeds.com.
Yeah, say alert with consciousness. That's all we ask, is that you be responsible in everything you do. You are listening to Time for Hemp. My name is Casper Leitch. I am the host of the show, and we have on this network about 19 other hosts that are putting out original content about the need to end prohibition. Make it a point to tune in and listen. We broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's nothing else like us out there, and we hope that you enjoy our content. With that said, we're going back to our joint discussion with our joint friends here on the joint broadcast with my joint host and joint guest here at Time for Hemp. Paul?
Yeah, so Lee, let's talk about your movie.
The movie, the work in production. Well, Boyhood only took 12 years. Just found that out at the Oscars this year.
I understand. You know, I've been working on a movie with a friend of mine called The Green Goddess. Started working on it about 1999. Filming started in 2002. Where the final sound has been cut now 15 years later, and it looks like it's going to come out sometime in the next month or two. So it's called The Green Goddess.
Well, I'd love to offer my post-production, movie, and production skills or any additional footage from my archives to your production or support. And on that note, I'd like to announce that our hempforvictory.net website will be updated in the near future, hopefully, to add time for Hemp Link and actually the stream. We want to make sure we work with you guys to keep the education flowing because you guys have been an immense value to my documentary film and giving people resources to excellent activism and some of the most important content because industrial hemp is not given enough attention. There's so many different states with issues that probably need a McLEAP program. You've got the LEAP program and the fellows from LEAP that, do your show. You got Jim Gray and some really fine people who have really spoken out. And I'm very happy to be a part of the people who you have on Time for Hemp because ultimately I still want to see Jason DeAndrews be California's first hemp farmer. Which was one of the stories in my movie that's important. While Jason's been on trial for 5 years, it set back industrial hemp growing in California that we were supposed to be the leaders. We started in my movie, said, you're going to be the first industrial hemp farmer. And 2 years ago, while my partner's on trial, they've just passed the legislation in California for industrial hemp to be grown. And to this date, I have not seen anyone in California growing industrial hemp.
Well, I can tell you that in Oregon, several farmers do have permits now and are growing. So that's a breakthrough that happened over the past year with the advent of full legalization. But, we could go on about hemp forever. Tell us about your movie.
My movie started and originally to be finished in 2012. We're on Facebook at Hemp for Victory 2012, I believe, is our link there. And I was changing the title to Hemp for Victory 2014, and we didn't even have a ballot initiative for the CCHI in 2014, and so I was stumped again with the story called Four Initiatives, because I started with CCHI.
Well, it looks like, California, you need a lot of money, and so whichever one what I discovered in Oregon is whichever one the Drug Policy Foundation wants, the Drug Policy Alliance. It's called the Drug Policy Alliance now. Whatever Ethan Nadelman and the Drug Policy Alliance want, Ethan Nadelman and the Drug Policy Alliance get. And that's what we have in Washington and Oregon, basically laws that, were vetted by them and basically written to suit their designs. But, the one in Oregon's a lot better than the one in Washington. I don't think you could have come up with a worse one for Washington, but it doesn't even allow personal cultivation.
Let me tell you a story that
I know your legislature, in addition to the four initiatives, your legislature is hopping. My friend Lanny Swerdlow in Riverside and Palm Springs has his Brownie Mary Club in the Democratic Party, and he says there are 13 different marijuana bills. I know he's organizing trips to Sacramento to talk to legislators.
I went to Sacramento and filmed Lanny Swerdlow with ASA at the round table and learning how to lobby. It is definitely a key part of my movie in teaching activism and education. But one of my main problems was ASA was never really hearing our issues, which forced me to build a McLeap. That when we donated our money to ASA, we still weren't being heard the way we needed to be heard to create legislative change, which is all part of my movie, is saying not just being a movie maker.
Lanny as well has empowered these local Democratic clubs, each of them independent, called the Brownie Mary clubs in the Democratic Party. So that's been crucial in getting these 13 different bills introduced in the legislature in Sacramento, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere this year, but we'll see.
Well, let me address what's the problem with California's legislature. We've had, strong bills supported by people like Tom Amiano, and we've had these legislations started, but they've unfortunately always crashed right before the critical points, or there's enough complaints coming between the different medical marijuana groups about the different holes in the legislation, because once again, lawmakers are not patients and caregivers, and they're not looking to the right source to lead legislation for what people need. That's why I've taken it upon myself to talk to medical board directors and talk to law enforcement leaders and really go above the level of ASA and some of these other organizations, and even with less manpower and monetary subsidization, just because I was beat on the head and shot in my doorway and no one wanted to listen to me.
Well,
shot doorway, that changed the game significantly, and it all...
Tell me about what's going on with your partner and how that motivates your activism.
Well, I think at this juncture, with Jason DeAndrews being forced to take a deal, it's taken almost 5 years to be able to file a state agency complaint. For people who don't know, if you're a victim of crime, since 1965, the state has had a program called CalVCP. It's the Victims of Crime program, and it's supposed to help patients, or not patients, it's supposed to help anyone who's a victim of crime. And I've researched the program to be pretty negative if law enforcement discriminates you. So I'm not recommending CalVCP to people, but I am recommending the Cal Victims of Crime Program Government Claims Board. And this is all available on the Internet if you look up the California Victims of Crime Program, CalVCP, or the Government Claims Board, the GCB, Government Claims Board. My attorney that threatened me and called me terrible names, John Fury, wanted to be brutal on his clients as an attorney, where I feel I hate to have to fill out, judicial complaints and bar complaints about everyone who wrongs a patient. But unfortunately, him being a patient and having, conditions, he probably shouldn't be practicing law. But if you start a $20 million claim for somebody and leave them hanging, it is definitely scary for a patient like Jason, who's homeless, been tased by the police, and violated in so many ways, to try to take on the work of an attorney. Even patients like myself...
when you're homeless, the attorney comes way, way down the list of priorities.
We couldn't even trust a public defender, and we also are discussing judicial corruption. The judge who basically had a hung jury against was the same judge who signed the papers 2.5 years later to have our grow space raided. We lost over 40 genetics and seed varieties from a seed bank that was in the freezer that is now taken by the Fullerton police. The Fullerton police tased Jason 3 times. He's a medical patient, and he was already being charged with being in possession of a pound that was taking our life in court for 4.5 years. He was devastated when they tased him and they took his grow space. He had remarried his wife, and he lost his marriage a second time. These are such devastating things to his life, his family, and his well-being that it is my personal battle of the vice president of his company to fight for my president. We don't have a huge board of directors like Harvard. We don't have that power because most of our patients were already disabled that we were serving.
Right. Well, getting cash for activism is always challenging, but I applaud you for your efforts.
Well, we were
if somebody
denied
wants to reach you on the internet or email, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way to contact McLeap, if you have any questions about any of your legal issues that we could help with, or you can't report a crime and you're concerned about a patient safety issue, you can always call our emergency hotline at 925-354-9411. Or you can email us and send your documents or questions to info. That's info, I-N-F-O, at McLeap, M-C-L-E-E-P, .org. .org. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of us.
Well, we are down to the last couple of minutes, so this is a good time for Paul to give out his URL and talk about the Friday night TV show.
Awesome.
Okay, well, Casper and I co-host or jointly host a cable access television show that plays on the internet since 1996. It's going on 19 years. It's Cannabis Common Sense, and we have video clips and the latest hemp and cannabis news. And you can watch it online, live at Ustream.tv. That's Ustream.tv/channel/cannabis-comma-sense. Or just go to our website at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. We have about 635,000 followers on our Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/RestoreHemp. And thank you, Casper.
And I want to remind people that we are a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week broadcasting network dedicated to ending prohibition. And you will find all kinds of great music and interesting conversation here on the big network to share with your friends. You can get our app in the Google Plus store. iHeart's got an app that they can download, and once you get the iHeart app, you can listen to us, say, with Tumblr and SoundCloud. You can keep up with us with Twitter by taking the Yap app on our homepage and downloading it into your computer. And if you want to broadcast our content on your website, we've got a WordPlus, is that what it's called?
WordPress website.
WordPress, yeah. If you're building a WordPress website, we've got a WordPress plugin that you can use to make it easy for you to share us with your friends. And remember, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spend. Take another look and spend some time for him. Don't cut tree